Created by a Palestinian-Israeli collective, No Other Land shows the destruction of the occupied West Bank's Masafer Yatta by Israeli soldiers and the alliance which develops between the Palestinian activist Basel and Israeli journalist Yuval. The documentary is directed by Yuval Abraham, Basel Adra, Hamdan Ballal, and Rachel Szor. So Jeffrey, what do you think about No Other Land?
Reviewing No Other Land will be kind of difficult. What makes this film effective is not like talking about other films. Considering the subject matter, it's almost condescending to talk about how well filmed and well edited it is, although it is those things. But essentially, it's the sum total of these ambitions, and it's a form of activism and almost like blunt force trauma of bearing witness to atrocity. Basel and Yuval talk a lot in the film about the importance of documenting what's happening. So every home that's being destroyed, every school that's being destroyed, there's like a particularly harrowing sequence where we actually watch a school get destroyed and watch the children watch the school get destroyed. And the villagers ask for answers, and they're met with only silence and anger from the people that are destroying their homes. Basel essentially says that with so little power in that community, being able to wield a weapon is basically like picking up a camera. The camera is your weapon in that scenario. So it can feel odd from our privileged Western perspective, the preoccupation to grab a camera and document what you're seeing the second it happens. But the filmmakers know that there's no arguing with the footage. And this is a film that's very hard to argue with.
I completely agree. No Other Land is a somber, piercing, gripping, and really harrowing look into this occupation of the West Bank and Israel's slow destruction of these innocent Palestinian lives, their homes, their schools, as you mentioned, and so much more. I think what makes this film so necessary, it's its ability to take so many of these clips and stories, as you were talking about, that we maybe have or haven't seen in the media, and really condense them into this concise and tight narrative that both teaches and enrages, I think. I want to tap into a little bit of something that you mentioned, how this film is like a way of protest. I find that very interesting because in the film, Basel is almost having difficulty getting this message out, trying to tell people what's happening. There's clips of him posting in all caps with exclamation points like, look what's happening to our home online. And he's barely getting any likes or interest. With the way the internet works, there's just so much noise. It's like, how do you break through the noise? And I think this documentary, as much as I wish it didn't exist, I think it meets this purpose, and I hope that this film does achieve that.
And I want to say this like off the top, just in case somebody watches 3 seconds of the review and starts yelling at us from like a bad-natured perspective. A lot of the anti-Palestinian rhetoric I hear has to do with Hamas. Like there's an equivocating of Hamas and innocent Palestinians living their lives in Gaza and the West Bank. When people such as us criticize Israel's actions here, it's not because we're aligned with Hamas, or it's more that we're much more sympathetic to innocent civilians that are put in this scenario because of their government. People often assign entire countries to the actions of their government. I mean, God help if like anyone outside of America was going to criticize me for what Donald Trump is doing. Like, people are not their governments. It's not the same thing. The filmmakers said in their Q&A after the film that Israel and Palestine are codependent on one another, and they will likely always be. That will never not be the case. And truly, neither side can be free until both sides are free. Freedom for Palestine also means freedom for Israel. So I implore people to see this film because I think there's a natural empathy and humanity that we have all within us that when we see this film and we see what other people are going through, I hope that whatever side of this, quote unquote, you find yourself on, that you just have a little bit of a question about why you think that way and if what's happening in Israel and Palestine is really deserving to anyone involved.
I couldn't agree more. I think what gets lost in the noise is that empathy. What tends to happen in the media or on Twitter or all these sites where people just say whatever the F they want, it just ends up turning into arguments. You get people arguing back and forth with each other, and what is lost in all of that is the innocent people, the humanity. And I think this film is a reminder that these are real people's lives and things are happening that the media is not paying attention to. They're more paying attention to the arguments and the back and forth or the most egregious things, but they're not paying attention to the little decisions that are being made that affect somebody's life. And this movie really delves into those decisions. The film, in a way, is describing in slow motion how this process of colonialism works in the West Bank. Settlements are brought in, and then slowly little bits of land are being taken away for whatever reason. In this case, Israel Israel telling these Palestinians in this area that their land is going to be used for training purposes for the military.
Yeah.
And that is the excuse that they are given for why this land and their homes are being torn down and taken away. This was actually something that was discussed during that Q&A. Yuval had mentioned how the process is purposefully slow to demolish one home every week to avoid so much attention. And he said it's easier to come in and round everyone up on a truck and ship them out, but that would draw too much attention. So what they do instead is, come in once a week. And we see this throughout the film. They're talking about in the village, they're like, whose home is going to be demolished this week? And they're just waiting for it. And then all of a sudden you see the tanks come in and the bulldozers and one home that is being destroyed out of many that will happen over the course of months. I do want to get back to our main voices of the film, and that's Basel and Yuval. One is an Israeli and one is a Palestinian. They both share the same invested interest in why people's land is being taken away, why people's homes are being demolished, and questioning the Israeli forces that are making these actions and being critical of them. I just want to start off with Basel because I feel like the words determination, courage, and grit are even too hollow to describe the kind of man that he is.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy who literally rushes into a conflict with a camera in hand to document this destruction without measuring any risk to his life. And that is so much more apparent when you see that one side is coming in with tanks and machine guns, and he still decides to put himself in their faces, probing them with questions of why. That seems to be like a very common theme in this film, like question-wise, is that they all just ask why. Why are you doing this? Why are you destroying my home? And they don't really answer. Lots of these Israeli soldiers are lacking emotion almost entirely.
We often come at this again from a very privileged Western perspective, but put yourself in their shoes for a minute. They have been living there and their families have been living there for literal generations. This is not like they bought this home 2 days ago or they just built it there without telling anybody.
Yeah.
Imagine if you're just hanging out in your neighborhood and the government that you rely on, a government that you rely on, shows up and just destroys your home. And you ask, which is probably a much nicer way of going about it than I would, why are you doing this? And they don't answer you. That would be infuriating, right? And it's really no different. Those people are no different than us. We were born in this place, they were born in that place, and that's really the only difference. But I want to highlight what you were saying as well, that a highlight of the film is certainly the friendship between these two people. Like, they're from different factions, they're born to different places, but they share the same political outrage, which I find really inspirational. A friendship and journalistic collaboration between an Israeli reporter and a Palestinian citizen is fairly unheard of, I think, in the coverage here. I haven't seen anything like that. When I was first going through New York Film Festival's list, this is a film that really caught my attention because I said, wow, that's really interesting. And I really wonder what the perspective is going to be. So it leads to some interesting discussions in the film also. Yuval says that one of the reasons he's so angered by Israel's actions is he feels like it's being done in his name. Kind of like I was saying before about anything America does, I feel like is being done in my name because I'm an American. I feel partly responsible for it. So by extension, his nationality and many Palestinian villagers ask him, why did you spend so much time here? How can we be your ally if it's your brother or your friend that just destroyed our home? In those conversations, you see a righteous indignation that really doesn't have an outlet. I think the way that he carries himself and he's able to explore those questions with the sense of responsibility that he has as an Israeli is really extraordinary and some of my favorite parts of the film.
I completely agree. I think his place in the documentary is so important, but I also kind of feel bad for the guy. He's clearly standing up for what is right in this situation, but he's clearly caught between these two sides that don't really fully accept him. Many of the Palestinians in the village, as you were describing, don't really trust him or they put blame on him. They will outrightly say, like, why are you doing this to us? As if he is literally the person doing it, even though he's there trying to bring to light these atrocities. And on the other side, the Israelis he encounters call him a traitor for writing about this occupation and the destruction of the homes in the village. I feel like this is a little bit of a lonely journey on his part, but it's one full of moral determination and empathy.
Something else I really liked about the film is for all of the devastation it shows, it also makes a lot of time for humanity. We see footage of children playing in playgrounds amidst the background of wreckage, that buildings that were destroyed earlier. We see families sitting on the floor together, eating dinner, laughing, arguing with one another. They even make jokes about like very desperate situations. So Basil's mom makes this great joke about how she can't get him up to go to school, but whenever she says, "Oh, the police are here," he jumps right out of bed. I thought that was really funny, but the fact that they still have a sense of humor about everything going on around them shows this amazing humanity of the village that they live in. But that's really an important part here, and that's not something to undermine all of the activism in the film's more upsetting passages. But highlighting the humanity really shows what's at stake for these people. These characters aren't written. This isn't a tragic Netflix drama. This is real life. This is people that live in these houses that grab a literal camera and show you what their life is like on a daily basis. So yeah. I just found that really impactful.
Some of the imagery really caters itself to that difference. Mm-hmm. We see Basel in like a hill face. Mm-hmm. He's lying. It's actually, I think, the image of the poster, but it's a very stark image that he is lying on the side of this hill, and in the background, you just see these tanks rolling in up the hill.
Yeah.
Which side empathy lies on is so stark by so much of these visual images. There are skirmishes between the two sides at different points in the film where devastating things happen. And one of them is the fight over this generator. You could imagine you live in a village, you don't have many amenities, and one thing that is so important is electricity. Mm-hmm. Electricity for your fridge that is now in a cave because your house was destroyed. There's a skirmish because the Israeli soldiers are trying to take away this generator, and they're sitting there with machine guns trying to take it away from them, and the Palestinians are only clinging onto this generator trying to pull it. They have absolutely no weapons. They're doing nothing here but trying to hold on desperately to this generator because of how important it is to their lives. Then one of the Israeli soldiers takes up his gun and literally shoots somebody. Mm-hmm. Like, bad things are happening over there, but seeing it in a documentary format, like this is the footage, is very overwhelming at times.
Yeah, and we see them destroy the same home over and over. We see them destroy the home. People rebuild the home in secret. They build at night so that they don't see them, and then they knock down the home again, and then eventually they cut off the water supply to the home so that there's no water for them, and it just continues to escalate. I learned a lot from this film. This is maybe a natural extension of the way you would think of how it would break down in Israel and Palestine, but I didn't know that like Palestinians and Israelis have different IDs, so that means that they can go different places. They have different license plates for their cars, so if you have a Palestinian license plate, you can't drive on these roads, but Israeli license plates can drive on these roads, and a variety of things that I just didn't know about, just like various limitations that's imposed on them from the governments. So it's a very educational film as much as it is a tragic one. Something that we've been following, I think, on and off throughout this conflict has been going on for ages, but I was just very, very taken aback at some of the footage here. It's footage that, like I said at the beginning, you just simply can't argue with it. It exists. It is something that literally happened in front of you. It's not AI. It's not being manipulated. It is something that no matter who you side with, you honestly have to reckon with it.
So in this conversation, I think an interesting point to make is that if we had filmed this review maybe a month ago when we saw the film, I think we'd be having a little bit of a different conversation than we are now. Obviously, I don't think the Biden administration has been great on this issue in terms of recognizing or helping Palestinians who are in need, like innocent people. But as we have this new administration come in, we have Mike Huckabee, which is just announced as the ambassador to Israel, and he has literally said comments that he does not believe the West Bank exists. Like, he doesn't believe of its existence entirely. That is where Basel lives with his family. And I cannot help but think, what is going to be the process from here? And it's just sad. I don't think it's going to be good. If anything, is a reason this film needs to be seen by as many people as possible. If you're somebody who's watching this video and you disagree with our opinions or things that we've said in here, I desperately ask you to watch this film. It leans with empathy, it leans with compassion, and it's really about portraying innocent lives, people that are not out there doing terrorist acts. And so we need to know that these people exist, and they should be just as much a priority as innocent Israeli lives.
And let me tell you, the filmmakers' patience when they talk about Israel, you're very hard pressed to see them say anything that is unfounded or too angry about Israel. Like it's
surprisingly so.
It's shocking the amount of restraint they have for what's happening to them. Again, I think it's really hard to argue with the fairness. I wish Mike Huckabee read the Bible that he seems to love so much, because he didn't learn shit from it. I just have to say that.
I think that's very apt. Are you ready to go to grades?
Yes, I give No Other Land an A-. It feels really stupid to give this a grade. I think that this is more than a movie. This is something that you can learn a lot from and frankly challenge your empathy and challenge your preconceived notions about what happens on the other side of the world. Sadly, this film does not have a distributor right now. It is being distributed in other countries, so I'm talking about America. Like, it came out in Germany over the weekend, so if you're living in other parts of the world, you may be able to see the film. It is being shown at Film at Lincoln Center. It was showed for a week. They'll probably show it again, maybe closer to Oscar season. But if you are anywhere near this film, definitely check it out. I hope that it gets in as many hands as possible.
This film was not getting picked up for a distributor for obvious reasons, political reasons, which is just sad because it's a film that leads with empathy and understanding. To not pick this film up because they feel like it's too divisive in any way, or they feel like it's going to reflect on their political beliefs or anything, I think is just absolutely outrageous.
I'd argue that it's not really a political film, actually.
Yeah, it's not.
I really don't think it is. I think it's a film that is about humanity. What I said about Mike Huckabee is political. That guy, but this movie isn't.
New York Film Festival is running this film specifically because it needs a certain amount of showing. What is it, like a week or two of
Yeah,
showings?
It needs a qualifying run for a week. So Film at Lincoln Center showed this film for a week so it can qualify for Oscars and top 10 lists for critics.
Obviously, I hope that maybe somebody will pick this up and not be a coward about it and get this film seen by more people. Is anybody even watching this review that like works for anybody?
I don't know, you should give the movie a grade, though.
Oh, shoot. Yes. I give it an A. I like you said, though, I feel weird giving a grade.
The film got a standing ovation. I felt weird, like applauding. Like,
It was so strange.
It was really strange. I mean, I'm glad they made it, and I'm glad it's being seen by anyone at all, but it feels weird to applaud something like this.
It's a film that should not have to exist.
Yeah.
It should not be in existence. People should just be living their lives right now and not having to worry about losing their homes and all that. And it will frustrate you. It will make you mad.
Yeah.
It will enrage you through the sheer restraint that it has. It's so bizarre, but it really works.
So that's it for a review of No Other Land. Unfortunately, we can't really give you much information of how to see No Other Land at this point, but hopefully it comes out soon. If you're anywhere near New York and you happen to see that it's showing at Film at Lincoln Center in the next couple of months, definitely check it out, and we will see you next time.